Hey you all, Farmer Jesse here. The new tunnel, which I posted about before, is up. We've got some plants propagation in it. Only 1/3 of this tunnel is going to plant propagation. The rest of it, the other 2/3, if I'm doing my math correctly, are going to be beds, lasagna beds specifically. So today in the video I want to talk about, well, I'll talk about what lasagna beds are, why I basically wrote them off for several years, and why we're trying a few. So let's do it. So this is our new tunnel, and it's going to be dual purpose. This side, this like 1/3 of the tunnel, right, is going to be dedicated to plant propagation, which means that this right here is going to be all black barrels filled with water, just as a sort of just a thermal mass to keep in a bunch of heat. We're not really going to heat this place, and I talked about that in that propagation house video, and so we do have these. It'll be 2 layers. It'll be a high one and a low one, and that will all be plant starts. But that's all really the plant starts we need. Remember, we're only on about 3/4 of an acre, and really we need it mostly for tomatoes in the spring. Now, anyway, not very interesting. Has nothing to do with lasagna beds. Then here we built 2 4-foot lasagna beds. Now the rest of our garden is in 30-inch beds. We went with 40-inch beds. We went with 4-foot beds because we wanted to make the most of this space. So although it looks like a wider pathway, that's just a little bit of drift from the wood chips, but these are legitimately 4 feet on either side. So those are 4-foot beds. Honestly, I kind of wish we'd done our entire garden in 4-foot beds. You just get better space and fewer paths, right? You know, if you go from 30 inches to 60 to 48, you're not quite doubling, but you're getting so much more bed space and so many less paths to deal with. And paths can be such an issue, as you've seen if you've been watching our video this year. So I think I would have done our entire garden in 4-foot beds if I'd thought about it earlier. And we did them in the lasagna style. So let me just describe what lasagna style is. Lasagna style gardening is what I kind of wrote off as like a backyard style of gardening for a long time. It's a layer of carbon, a layer of some nitrogenous material, so compost in this case. It can also be like food scraps or whatever, kind of high nitrogen material you may have. Should generally have some compost in it, but whatever you have access to. And then another layer of carbon, and you can do that as many times as you want. We went 3 layers here, so 1 carbon, 1 nitrogen, 1 carbon, 1 nitrogen, 1 carbon, 1 nitrogen. So that was the general bed prep. At first, on this side, we started with cardboard. So this was a layer of cardboard, and then we were just gonna fill the whole thing with cardboard, but we've struggled in our area to find carbon, like even cardboard. Wood chips, leaves, anything. It's really, straw, hay even, it's been kind of challenging. So hay is about our best resource, but honestly, I didn't really want to put hay in here because the whole point of the lasagna garden is to kind of suppress weeds. So yeah, we used cardboard, and then when we ran out of cardboard and couldn't find any more, I ordered some Weed Guard Plus, and I'll talk about that in a second. It's just a paper mulch. It's an OMRI approved, NOP compliant paper mulch. So we put the paper mulch down, added compost, paper mulch, compost, paper mulch, compost. We also sowed this to cover crop seed, so I'll talk about that in a second too. But the goal, like the reason that you'd want to do a lasagna bed is the weed suppression, right? You have this really nice thick layer of carbon blocking the weeds, and then you have multiple layers of that. So if a weed does come through, it has to get through several layers. And in this case, we sowed that top layer to cover crop. We sprinkled it right on the wet paper, right? So we sprinkled that right on the wet paper like you would in, middle school when you're like germinating a bean and you put it in a paper towel. Kind of the same concept. So we sprinkled that right on top, and then we sprinkled another layer of compost right over that, and we're gonna let that germinate and have those roots kind of also act as a weed block. In that mix was buckwheat, rye, vetch, red millet, and beans, a bean that I got on sale called Orient, just to have another second kind of summery legume in here. So we'll really let this be in cover crop all the way till April when we plant this to tomatoes. And this, I don't know yet. I'm kind of thinking new potatoes, which sounds ridiculous, but we sell them really well. So that would be the first two crops would be Solanaceae, and then we'd probably switch into something else for next year. But that's kind of the idea with this, is to make really rich soil, really deep, rich soil. We got this idea to do this on a commercial scale from Jared Smith of Jared's Real Food. We're big fans of Jared's. He is doing such cool things down there in California, in Southern California, and his garden beds are beautiful. And we really wanted to kind of do something like that here, but his access to straw we don't have, so we had to kind of come up with something different. You can use a lot of different stuff. You could use leaves, you could use straw, you could use any of those things. Cardboard mulch paper is just what we really had access to, and it was fairly affordable. I also really like the people at Weed Guard Plus. I met some of the people that work there, that run that company at Acres this past year, and they were awesome. I really liked them. They gave me a hat, super nice. But also, we ran out of paper here, and I was like, that's kind of unusual. We ordered 250 feet, we got 225. And so I called them, and they were super cool about it, and they're sending us an extra 50 feet. So I thought that was really nice, good customer service. I liked them all around. And they were like, that's unusual, that doesn't usually happen. So that's a good note, good plus, good on them. One thing I will say about doing it this way is I probably would not do this out in the field. Like right there, that's the plot that I complain about having a little bit of erosion because of the slope. And I think if I put this out there where it could get heavily rained on, it would just wash all that right off the cardboard, right off the paper mulch. So if you were doing it with straw, it may be different. In fact, I think it probably almost certainly would be different. But in a tunnel, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you have time to let a cover crop sort of break down. So I'm excited to see how this project goes, and I will definitely keep you all updated. If you're coming to the Frith Farm event here at Rough Draft Farmstead in October, we'll be able to check it out. We'll be able to dip our hands in it, see how it's going. This was a never-till option for us, so we didn't have to do any tillage in this plot. Like you can see in that video, we just are covering grass. And so this will be a good sort of trial to see how well that will work. And it'll also be interesting to see how the cover crop does, since we ran out of paper halfway, right? 225 feet, so we have 25 feet that actually only has one layer or two layers. 25 feet only have 2 layers of paper and an extra layer of compost, and then the cover crop was sown right into that. So we'll actually be able to see if there's a big difference in germination between what's on the paper mulch and what is just straight into compost. So we're keeping this really moist too, just to make sure that it actually does the germinating thing. Ever since talking to Jared for that podcast episode, I've been wanting to do this, so I'm very excited about how this goes. And as always, I invite you all to leave your comments below. Tell me, have you done lasagna gardening on any sort of commercial scale? What did you use? How did it go? What do you think about this one? Do you think that, I mean, this is really my first go at a legit lasagna bed. And I don't see any reason it won't work as long as we give it time to break down. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, like this video. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Podcast is coming up in September. Make sure to subscribe to that too at iTunes and all the places. The No-Till Market Garden Podcast. Yeah, and check out that Frith Farm event. You can go to notillgrowers.com. You can also find more information at patreon.com/farmerjesse. You can also contribute. We trial absolutely as many no-till options as we can so that I have some insight for the podcast and for you. Not every one of them succeeds, but I give them all a try, even if I don't necessarily think they're going to work. This one, I feel very good about. I'm very excited about this. And it's also super pretty. Trying to maximize this space. All right, I gotta go harvest. Thanks you all. We'll see you next week. Bye.